And I'm going to do our spiel and then we will get started. And then I'm going to ask you to pull your mask up. Yeah. So hello, everybody. Welcome to class. Welcome to Pilates All Levels. My name is Audra, and today we're going to use the purple squishy ball. At home, if you don't have one, feel free to fold a pillow. And today we're actually going to begin with a little bit of breath work and a little bit of mobility work before we work on stability, because sometimes we tend to think of stability as like this gripping, unmoving thing, but really it's about allowing your body to do what it needs to do, not at 100% all the time. So come into just kind of a comfortable position, seated. If you're like, oh man, sitting like this is not comfortable, you can always prop yourself up by folding your mat a couple times or sitting on a foam roller. We're gonna take the ball and just place it in front of us. We're gonna hug it and just kind of fold over a little in a gentle way. We don't have to go into a crazy fold. It's more like a little bit of a rounding. And we're just going to start to breathe. Just inhaling in through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Now, if you notice your shoulders moving, that could indicate that your diaphragm is not lowering or your ribs are not moving enough for your lungs to fully expand. And that could mean that you're using your secondary respiration muscles to help. So as we're breathing, I want you to try to fill the sides and backs of your lungs. You can even take your hands, place them on your back, and try to fill your back with oxygen, letting that tissue expand. And then exhale from the front. And then you can bring your hands to the sides of your ribs, fill them wide with oxygen, and then exhale from the front. Couple more. So if you think of your torso like a canister, right? Like a soda can, the top of the can is your diaphragm. The bottom of the can is your pelvic floor. And the sides of your can are your transverse abdominis. And they need to all expand and contract at the same time to keep equal intra-abdominal pressure to help stabilize your spine. One or two more breaths. So as we are working today, try to find that expansiveness through your back and sides, and it will just instinctively help stabilize you so you don't have to grip or brace. Go ahead and come on up. We're gonna come on to our knees. That's okay. Good. So bring one knee forward. You're welcome to use your hands on your front knee. And we're just going to see where our body is, right? Like maybe your hip bones like to dive forward and your booty likes to stick out. If you can, come into a small scoop. We don't have to like squeeze everything to get there. And we're still breathing wide and down. And then this front foot, you're gonna push your foot gently into the floor and drag your heel back so your knee can glide forward. Getting a little stretch through the front. That's it. Now, sometimes our hip flexors feel tight because they are. Sometimes they feel tight because they're weak. So we're just gonna gently push our foot down into the ground. See if you can get the front of that hip to light up a little bit. Inhale. Exhale, relax the pressure. See if you can get a tiny bit more movement. Then think about pressing your knee down and forward if it feels all right. So now it's as if you're trying to come into hip flexion. Inhale. Exhale, just relax the flexion. Sink into your easiest range of motion. And now we're going to try to use both legs to come on up. Slowly let yourself come into that just gentle, stretchy position. Doesn't have to be huge. Bring it back up. Two more. Still trying to fill here with oxygen as opposed to sending the ribs up, right? And then back. Now, same side arm as back leg, reach it up and over, gentle little stretch. And then of course you can come out of it. Now remember, don't do anything that doesn't feel good for your body, right? So if you're like, oh man, this stretch is kind of rough, just do what you can, right? Good. 2 more. As you're doing this, start to fill the side rib, right? So you can even bring that hand across, hold, fill that along with oxygen. 1 more. And then you can come back to the other side. Good. So just gentle movement to start. Find that little tuck. Think about that foot pressing down and dragging back so you can get that little bit of openness. If you get to a point where your hip bones drop down or your ribs pop, bring yourself out of it a little bit and focus on that breath. And then press your foot down, and you can always use the foam roller for support if your foot gets wiggly. Yeah. Is it your left one? Okay. But right foot? Okay. And then relax. And then you can press that knee down and forward like you're trying to come into hip flexion. My right sesamoid is the same one. Yeah. Yeah. And breathe. And then relax. Just kind of see where you are. Keep breathing into the back and sides of your ribs. And then you can take that arm up and over. And then out. It's feeling okay for everybody? Good. Everybody looks like this is more challenging than it should be, right? Couple more. Still trying to breathe into that side, opening up that whole sideline. Last one. You can even bring that hand. We're going to expand. And exhale. 2 more. Slow. And then come back. Go ahead, bring yourself up because you're using both legs. Slowly lower. See where your range is. Bring everything up and slowly down. 2 more. Good. Last one. We're actually going to make our way onto our back as I throw that. So everybody, come onto your back, knees bent, feet flat. Arms are going to be wide. Now think about your shoulders rotating back. So as opposed to a retraction, we're just allowing our shoulder blades to get flat on the ground, palms up. Now gently press the backs of your hands into the floor and then relax. And 1 more. Now, lift up onto your toes. Let one hip drop, the other hip starts to lift. And just go into a range that you can where you're thinking of that length through your sideline as opposed to an arch happening. Look away from your knees, so you're looking towards the fingertips of that opposite hand. Still inhaling into that sideline. Last breath like this. Bring your attention to your waistline. Drag your waistline down to bring your knees with it. Head comes back to center. Other side. So once again, we're still trying to think of that canister. We don't want any bends in our soda can right now. That changes the pressure, right? We just breathe. We're trying to think of length. And if there's a side that's harder to fill, focus on that, right? Especially if, for example, there's scoliosis, right? Whether it is functional or structural, there's always going to be a side that is more challenging to fill with oxygen. And then exhale, drag the ribs back. Good. Bring one leg at a time to tabletop. Go ahead, think of your thigh bones sinking down into the socket. Gently squeeze the inner thighs together. And if this is not comfortable in your hips for any reason, bring your feet down. Otherwise, we do the exact same thing. We're just not going to hold as long and we're not going into quite as deep of a range. Exhale, drag the ribs back. Reset, other side. Once again, we are sinking from the ribs. That's the initiator here, right? Think of your ribs like the steering wheel and your legs like the wheels, right? Just because the wheels are on the road, that steering wheel is still where the wheels get their like response from, right? One more each side. Come back to center. Bring one foot to the ground, the other foot can cross in a little figure 4. Now, if being in a big external rotation doesn't feel great, you can cross that leg over, right? Whatever feels good for you and your body. And just make sure your ankle is strong. If you want to point or flex, either one is fine. Now, wherever that foot is pointing, that's the range we're going to go. And just feel how you get movement through different tissue, right? And bring it back. 2 more on this side. Still trying to get range through that rib cage as opposed to just the lumbar. Last one like this. Still expanding into the side and backs of your ribs. And then if it feels appropriate for your body, you can bring that leg up to actually get a glute stretch. Now, if your tailbone is coming up, think about sticking it out so you get a little bit flatter pelvis here. And breathe. Everybody feeling a gentle glute stretch? Yeah. Sometimes we don't give those deep hip rotators enough love. 2 more breaths. And then we switch legs. So bring that one leg down, other leg down, switch legs. Now just see what's more comfortable on this side, right? Maybe a more like cross-legged position is more comfortable, maybe not. We're gonna let that foot start to point towards the ground. Feel where that gentle line of pull or stretch is coming from. Could be the same place that it was, but more than likely other muscles will be involved. Two more like this. And last one. And then if it's comfortable for your body, you're welcome to come into that figure 4. Once again, if your tail feathers are up, try to let them be nice and heavy here. And just breathe. Think of your sits bones widening on your inhale. Two more breaths, just seeing if you can let those deep hip rotators melt slightly. Last one. Bring both feet down to the ground. Now, if you have your prop close to you, you're welcome to pop it in between your inner thighs to give you a little bit of support. And we're just finding that neutral spine. So if you tend to kind of hike on one side or rotate, it's okay to kind of shift from side to side a little bit. Try to find that evenness of your hip bones or your ilium. And just then find your rib cage, right? As we breathe, send the rib cage heavy and wide. On your next exhale, think about hugging your hip bones and ribs in towards your belly button without moving your spine. So now it's a more engaged position. And then inhale, everything wide. So much like we did at the beginning, we're trying to expand through your whole canister here. Exhale, draw everything in. Last one. Hold this last one, gently imprint your spine. So we're coming into that little tuck of your tailbone, not by gripping through the hips, but by allowing the spine to relax down to the ground. Press into your foot, press into your hands, and allow yourself to come into your first bridge. Now, just check in. If your weight is on your neck or your ribs are popping, think about opening your throat and allowing your weight to be on your shoulders as opposed to your neck, right? You might be a little lower, but that is a slightly more neutral position. And then if your hips are kind of dumping down, just find that little posterior tilt, right? That under butt will be gently active. Now inhale, exhale, melt through your throat, your sternum, your ribs, your low back, relaxing all the way through your sits bones. On the way down. And then on the way up, gentle peel as if you're peeling a sticker off the wall. Don't worry about coming up as high as you think you can or you need to. Try to find gentle engagement. And then on the way down, let everything melt and spread. Good. 2 more. Now, once again, as you're coming into your imprint, make sure that you're not accidentally over gripping through the fronts of your thighs. How can I tell? Well, a couple ways. You can, one, put your hands on the front of your thighs and see if those muscles stay soft as you move. They might lengthen and become more taut because they're in a stretched position. But if they go ding, 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 that's an indicator that they're trying to work. The other thing you can do is think more about letting your ribs and belly button sink down to the ground to initiate that imprint rather than just going for the gold, right? And then last one, coming all the way down, letting your sits bones be wide, allowing your pelvis to be in neutral. Interlace your hands behind your head. Let your elbows be wide here. Now, we're just doing something for funsies, okay? Keep your elbows as wide as possible and try to come into your chest lift. It's really hard, isn't it? And it's a little bit in that neck, right? So now bring your head down. Spiral your elbows forward. You're externally rotating through your arm bones. Shoulder blades just melt down. And now come into your chest lift. It's a little easier to find height, right? Good. And then lengthen all the way down. We're trying to get that serratus to help us. So inhale. Exhale, just spiral the collarbone forward. And then we slowly lower. On our next one, we're actually going to hold. So as we hold, try to breathe into the back of your lungs. And then exhale, find that engagement and maybe squeeze the ball a little. We're trying to find that whole adductor, not just the groin muscles. So if you're having trouble and you're just feeling that upper inner thigh, bring your feet a little closer together and allow them to externally rotate slightly if you need to. And we're holding. See if on that exhale, you can curl up and over that beach ball just a millimeter more. And then on the inhale, you maintain it. 2 more. Nice job, everybody. And then slowly lower down. Bring one hand to your side. Now, as we chest lift, that hand is gonna slide towards your heels a little bit, right? So let it slide and then hold. Now we're just going to rotate your opposite armpit towards that hand without letting that hand move. Good. Yep. And then back to center. You can slowly lower down. Let's do a couple more. Let the fingertips move. Hold. Inhale. Exhale. Rotate. Hey, Nancy, let your elbow be slightly wider and then rotate more from your sternum. Yeah. And then back down. So if you tend to, all of a sudden, and I tend to do this too, use that elbow to try to get across, try to use more of that rib cage connection. Good. Last one. Lift, rotate, hold. Now we're rotating towards one hand. That same thigh is just going to squeeze in a little bit. We're trying to use unilateral engagement as opposed to just bilateral. If you can, lift a little higher towards me. Yeah, good. Good. So I'm looking at my left hand, so my left inner thigh is squeezing. If at any point you need to put your head down, it's fine. 2 more breaths. Last one, come all the way down. Nice job. Anybody not feel their obliques a little bit? Yeah. Go ahead. Spiral that elbow forward, other hand slides towards that heel. And then we hold. Inhale, exhale, rotate your ribs, rotate your sternum so you look at that hand. Come back to center, lower down. Now try to think of your head as just one extra vertebra, right? So our skull actually begins way up here, not way down here, right? So if we think of our neck extending even longer, we can keep it in line without necessarily coming into like an extended position. Right? We're sinking our ribs down before we rotate. It's a 2-parter. I guess it's a 4-parter because it's 2 parts up, 2 parts down. Lift, rotate, rotate, lower. We get to hold this last one and breathe. And then same side leg just squeezes a little. So I'm looking to my right, so my right leg is squeezing. Just a few more. 4, 3, 2, 1. Come back to center. Lower all the way down. Go ahead, take the prop in between your hands. We're going to use the heel of our hand a little bit. Before we actually get going, think about those elbows kind of hugging down. We're trying to find our armpits. So allow one leg to float to tabletop by that thigh bone sinking down. Now, if you tend to grip to your quad and hip flexor, take a second and let all the muscles in your leg help. A little bit of hamstring, a little bit of inner thigh. And then you can press the ball into the leg into the ball. We're finding irradiation through our muscles. So it's an isometric contraction. And breathe. Does everybody feel that delightful engagement? Yeah. 2 more breaths. Just match the weight of the leg with the armpits. And then we get to do the other side. It's okay to press that foot into the floor to allow for that first lift. And once again, if you're like, oh, I just feel my quad, take a second, okay? Then heel of the hands, we're finding those armpits. Couple more breaths. Good. 3, 2, 1. Now you can stick with one leg at a time or bring your other leg to tabletop. Squeeze the inner thighs together. Press both of them into the prop. Good. Now, if this is where you are, fantastic. Otherwise, you can let one knee lengthen away from your face as you tap the toe towards the ground. And then exhale, drag it back. Other side. Good. So if you've ever had to do dead bugs, right, that exercise, this is a variation of it, but I think it's much harder because we're keeping all of the muscles engaged the whole time, and we're working on that breath. Now, if you would like a little bit more challenge, you can push one foot away from you, reach it far, far away, and then other side. And then if you'd like even more challenge, you take that opposite arm overhead. Keep that pressure in the ball. How's everybody doing? Good? Yep. 2 more breaths. Last one. And then hug both of your knees in towards your chest and gently allow yourself to rock back and forth. Set the prop to the side, bring both feet down. Now, if you need, feel free to gently press your hands into your thighs, just a little to get a tiny bit of traction, and then slide one leg out long. Now, without letting that knee bend, or without squeezing that glute so hard that the pelvis rotates, we're just going to gently push the heel down into the ground, trying to find a little bit of glute and hamstring, and then relax. And then again. Now, as you're doing this, if you're noticing that your back is trying to arch, find that breath again, right? Everything widens and contracts. Now, you can either keep your head down or come into a chest lift. I'll show both. Inhale, pressing down into that heel. Exhale, narrow through everything, push your heel away from you. It might want to hover, and that is okay. But we're just barely taking half a pound of weight out of that leg. And then relax on your inhale. If your chest is lifted, it's here. Exhale, reach it away. Trying to find that stability through your core as opposed to lifting from that hip flexor, okay? Press down on your inhale and then reach away on your exhale. One more. And then keep your elbows in front of your eye line and curl forward rather than looking up. Good. And then switch legs. Just extend it out. All we're doing is gently pressing. Now, even though we're trying not to pull on our head, that interlacing of the hands just creates a hammock shape for your head to gently rest on. Now, when you're ready, press down on your inhale, press away on your exhale. And then inhale, press down, exhale, push away. Anybody else start trembling as soon as they push away? Yeah. Couple more. Good. Because we're reaching away. It's almost like a lever to help keep us elevated, right? 2 more. Good. Last one. And then bring that leg into your tabletop. Your head can either be up or down. Bring the other leg to meet it. I'm going to put my head down for a second. And then push 1 foot away. We're actually going to flex our feet for this. Imagine that your heels are against a wall and you're just pushing into that wall at 10%. Now, one of your feet is going to keep pushing until it reaches all the way away. Fold it in, other side. Now, if this is what feels good for you, amazing. If you're like, you know what, it would be a lot better for me personally with my head down, great, listen to your body. If you're like, oh, I'm a little grippy through my hips today, or my back doesn't love this, instead, you can tap. If that's still a little much, bring your feet down. You can march. All right, so whichever variation feels best for you, it's what I'd like you to do. So whether you are marching, or you are tapping, or extending with your head down, or extending with your head up is great. Now, we can add rotation here whenever you guys are ready. Now, if head down, instead of rotating, just find opposite arm and leg. Otherwise, rotate towards that front knee. And then we can switch. Switch slow, 4, 3, 2, hold, inhale, exhale, slow, 4, 3, I know it's so fun, 2, hold, inhale, exhale. Good, everybody. Now, if your head is down, you are welcome to find that oblique connection by bringing your opposite hand across like a seatbelt. But you have to find that armpit connection, but then also that glute medius connection to keep the leg tracking. 2 more. Good. Last one. Each side. And then head comes down. You can either circle your thighs in the socket or just hug your knees in towards your chest. Nice job, you guys. Go ahead, bring your feet down. Now, thinking of that canister, right? That inhale, that exhale, keeping everything either expanding or contracting together. Reach your fingertips down towards your feet. Widen through your collarbones and just start pumping your arms. Inhale, exhale. And just feel if your ribs are popping, or if you can dynamically stabilize just with your breath. Now, if you're like, yeah, I can dynamically stabilize just with my breath, this is great. I'd like more challenge, please. No problem, bring your legs to tabletop. If you're like, yeah, that's cool, but I'd love to feel my abs superficially a little bit more, fantastic. Lift your chest. If you're like, you know, hundreds are my favorite and I like to do the full version, great, extend your legs up. If you nod your chin and look in between your thighs, it'll take some pressure off your neck. What, Stephanie? Favorite, so good, yeah. Inhale, exhale. Almost there. Squeeze those inner thighs together, especially if your feet are lifted. And everything comes down to the ground. Nice job. Bring your fingertips towards the sky and then let your arm bones just melt so your shoulder blades are flat. Now, with the legs extended, if you're being pulled into an anterior tilt, see if you can come back to neutral. And if it's really hard, just bend your knees a millimeter. Allow those hands to come overhead, opening your armpits. Inhale, come into your chest lift. Exhale, curl forward. Good. Now, those looked great, you guys. We're gonna do a bunch more. So if you have tightness in your back or your hips, you're welcome to take a gardening pad and slide it underneath your low back to give you a little assist. Okay, we're gonna reach our hands forward, shoulders down. Now imagine that I am coming up behind you and hugging you. So you're like, oh, hey, what's up? You've got this uppercase C shape. Inhale, exhale, curl, and just start to lower. We're lengthening our hips towards our face. Tuck your tailbone a little bit more. Yeah, good. And then allow those arms to come overhead. Nod your chin. Think about rolling forward. Do you feel how your feet came up? Nod your chin and roll more, and that'll help. Yeah. So let's talk about a few things as we do this, right? This is, hip flexors have to move as well as our abs to get our spine, right? If our hip flexors are dominant, they're gonna try to lift, right? So rolling forward and pressing down slightly into your heels can help. Yeah, much better. You can also widen your feet a little and bend your knees a fraction of an inch. So if your TFL is tight, it is an A-B ductor. So if you are having trouble with those feet closer together, but feet wide helps. Yeah, good. Nice. Nice. Oh, so close, so close. Good. Yeah, you know, and roll. Good, everybody. Go ahead, bring your feet together, knees apart, and we're just gonna fold over the legs for a second. Good. And now we've got our prop, so we're gonna use it. We're actually going to bring it pretty close behind us. So just an inch or two away from your hips. Knees can be bent, feet flat, shoulders draw down your back, hands on your shins. Now, when we stack up tall, it's less of an arch, it's more rolling your sits bones forward, shoulders draw down, head just gently lifts. Good. Now, inhale, exhale, just curl until you touch the ball, right? So you can have it closer, you can have it farther away, it's up to you. And it's tempting to just kind of rely on it, but we're just using it as like a guiding point, okay? Now keep those ribs closed, exhale, allow your hands to come up and then bring it back. Good. Few more. Think about your ribs sinking back. Yeah, and then, yeah, is that more ab work? Yeah, good. Yeah, exactly, good. Ribs back a little. So yeah, good. And you don't even have to take your arms back as far, just hold that range where you can keep those armpits nice and open. Yeah, good. Be clear. Let your collarbones spiral up. So it's gonna let your shoulders lift some. Don't force them down. Yeah, yeah. Is that easier on the shoulder? Yeah. Good. Totally. Good. Nice job, everybody. Yeah, yes, beautiful. Now, if you'd like to add on, you can, you don't have to. You can slide one foot out, press it down to bring it in. So we are extending, but we're trying to find hamstring and glute to help us back as opposed, yeah, as opposed to just the front of the leg. Good. Two more. Last one. Hold. Now you can either hold on to your legs here or forward, it's up to you. We're just gonna let one arm open, hug it back. Good, and again. Now this is oblique, but it's also thoracic rotation. So if you're like, and you can't go very far, let your breath help you. Let your ribs rotate. Good. Now, sometimes I get more out of my hand floating freely. Sometimes I actually get more out of closing my kinetic chain by holding onto my leg. So try both. See what works better for you. One more each side. Good. And then come all the way up. We're gonna, yeah, we're gonna come into just a seated position. And we're gonna do some spine twist. It's active, but let's first try a couple things, right? So let your left, like right and left, your left shoulder rotate forward. Hey, what's up? Okay, now with this left shoulder rotating forward, I want you to actually rotate to the left. It's really hard, isn't it, to get more rotation? Yeah. Now, with that shoulder rotated forward, rotate to your right. It's so much easier, right? Let's try it again on the other side, just to make sure so you don't have to have it on the ground, just flop it forward, yeah. Less here, more just relaxed. Yeah, there you go. And rotate towards it. Still really hard to do versus there, okay? So our pecs work with our obliques to help us rotate, okay? So now, hands on your shoulders, shoulder blades set. So it's more of a posterior tilt than a retraction. Let's try a couple more. Let your elbows just kind of go back. Now bring your elbows forward. Sneak your elbows forward. Yeah, good. Now, rotate to one side. The rotate, or the side you're rotating away from, let that elbow come forward a little bit more. And then other side. Good. See, it's a little bit easier to move now. Still trying to get that rotation through your thoracic, still lengthening through the crown of your head. Good. Nice job, everybody. One more each side. Good. We're going to come onto all fours. Now, if it doesn't feel great to be on your hands, be on your forearms or your fists, or grab a set of weights, okay? Now, we're coming on to hands to knees, so it's a figure, nope, not a figure four, a quadruped. Lengthen your ears away from your face, and make sure you're putting a little bit more pressure through your pointer finger rather than the heel of your hands. Think of your sits bones widening and just press your hips back a little. And then use the back of your legs to help you come back. So slowly pressing back, coming into hip flexion, but passively, and then actively coming a little bit out of hip flexion. Couple more. We need to be able to come into hip flexion. We also need to be able to come out of it. On this next one, just hold the quadruped position. Try to kind of hug your armpits in a little. Think of your knees pressing down and out just a tiny bit to get the side glute active. And we just start with little kitty cat paws, right? Just a little lift. Trying not to let our elbows hyperextend, which doesn't mean necessarily bending them. It just means using muscle to keep them in their range. So bicep, tricep activation, as opposed to hanging out in the joints, okay? Now, if this feels good, you are ready to advance it. You're going to think about lifting one hand just a tiny bit, reach it away from you. Now, before it lifts, your shoulder blade is actually going to rotate down, and as an extension of that arm lifts. And then other hand, lift. Good. So yes, you can just move from the arm, but we're trying to open that armpit. We're trying to get that shoulder blade to initiate the movement, so we can get that lower trapezius to initiate it rather than the upper trap. Press the floor away to keep yourself elevated. Yeah, perfect, good. Good, good. Two more. Everybody feeling their lower traps, that bottom tip of their shoulder blade just a little bit? Good. That muscle tends to be a little sleepier. And then when we go to depress our shoulders, we tend to overgrip through our lats. So that's why it's important to be able to find it. This was our last one. We're going to come into a plank. So if you need to be on your forearms, now is the time. And if you need to prop your ankles up, now is the time. So slide one foot out, push it into the ground so you find that ankle dorsiflexion. So push your heel more. Yeah. Now inhale into your back. Exhale, slide that up. Better, Claire. Yeah. And breathe. Good. We're just going to hold. Good. And then bring both knees down. We're going to slide that other foot out. Reach through that heel. Inhale. Exhale. Think more about one long line from your ears to your tailbone rather than your ears to your feet. Good. Now, if you'd like to do front support, you can exhale, bend one knee underneath you. Other side. I'm going to be on my fists for a second. Good. Two more, if you like. Last one, knees down. Press yourselves into your rest position. Hands up and over to one side. Press your hips away, opening through that other side. And then we get to do the other side. And we get to come on to a side. So you're welcome to bring your prop with you as a pillow. You're welcome to just have your arm as your pillow. It's up to you. And we're going to start with a little bit of thoracic rotation. So bring that fingertip to the sky. Shoulder blade melts out of the ear, but without force. And then just let your ribs start to rotate here. If your hip comes up, it's okay. And then exhale, come back to center. Just 3 more like this. Trying to find a little bit of length through both sides. Good, 2 more. This should feel good and easy on your spine. If there's a range that doesn't feel good, don't go into it. Last one. And then come back to center. Now extend that top leg out. You can keep it elevated or on the ground. You can keep it bent, but it's up to you. Now we're ignoring this top leg. We're actually going to take our hand and place it on our sacrum, so that triangular bone. Now, just feel your sacrum glide as we're doing this. Keep your bottom knee on the ground the whole time, okay? Let your hips and ribs rotate up to the sky a little. Keep the knee on the ground, rotate back. Good, just a couple more. We're just trying to get the bottom leg active, but without gripping, so it can help dynamically stabilize you as we do our side lying work. Last one, keep the knee on the ground, don't worry about range, and back. All right, so now this should hopefully feel pretty easy to like activate. Take your top hip, lengthen it away from your face. Think of that bottom rib lifting slightly, like I wanted to slide a sheet of paper under you. Lift up with your ribs. Yeah, down with your foot. Yeah, there you go. Good. Now imagine your heel is against a wall. You're going to push your heel into the wall and push and push. So we're just trying to get our nervous system to activate that glute max and hamstring a little bit without letting our hips move, right? So as we breathe, good. Last one, hold. So it's back behind you slightly. And then we paintbrush that foot up a little bit of a wall, squeegee it down. Now, we're going up and away. If your foot lifts really high, see what my hip just did, right? My hip height, which meant that either my TFL, my QL, or my obliques were trying to do the job of that glute. So we're keeping that foot ever so slightly behind us. So the glute has to be able, or can kick on faster than the TFL. We're lengthening away. so our oblique and QL don't overtake it either. Good. It's tricky, right? Last one. And then bring that leg to center. Good. Now first, just let your hip and rib move a couple times, not huge. Now, flex the foot, allow it to hinge forward into a range that feels okay for you, and then drag the foot back through sand or mud, right? Flex, allow it to hinge, and then point, drag it back. Good. We're trying not to let our spine move here, right? So as the foot comes forward, almost think about sticking your butt out. And as it drags back, almost think about gently curling your tailbone, right? It's more biasing towards an anterior posterior tilt, but it just helps the pelvis not have to be gripped in order to stabilize. Last one. Nice job, you guys. Go ahead, roll on to your other side. I'm gonna turn around so I can see you guys a little easier. You guys feeling okay? That glutes start to kick on a tiny bit? Sneaky, yeah? All right, we're gonna start with that little bit of rotation. So arm comes to the sky and we rotate. Good. And again. Making sure you're breathing fully, right? So who wants to tell me why thoracic rotation is important? What activity is thoracic rotation really important for? Nancy? Walking. Yeah. And running, but I'll, yeah. And come back to center. Good. Now think about lifting that bottom rib, sending that hip away. We can extend that leg, and it can either be up or down. And then that top hand comes to the sacrum. We're just gonna let the sacrum glide. Try to keep this knee down the whole time as we open ribs and hips and back. Now, here's the thing. If on one side you can go really, really far, and on the other side something is lifting, don't go as far, right? It might be an indicator that you have a restriction on this side, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a thing. It just lets us know a little bit more about what's going on, right? So keeping knee and foot down if you can as you take it back. Good. Last one. Good. And then think about that heel being against an imaginary wall. You're just going to press it back, press it back. We're not letting it come forward. So if you can avoid it coming in front of your hip, that would be great. We're coming into neutral and then small hip extension due to muscular activation. So the nervous system is really cool, you guys. And it responds to the input you give it, which, just for fun, clear your head. Imagine your foot moving with no restriction, right? Just moving freely, pendulously. Now imagine it's against something and you want to push into that thing to move it. Feel the difference in how the muscles activate? And all you did was think something differently, right? Last one, hold it slightly back. And we're gonna paintbrush up that wall, hold, keep pushing away, and squeegee down. Good. Paintbrush, reaching it away. Good, and squeegee down. If you bring your heel back a tiny bit, yeah, actually bring your heel back slightly too. Good. And then when you lift your foot up, pause before it gets too high because your hip has to like adjust to it. Yeah. Good. Yeah, is that more side booty? Yeah, good. Squeegee. Hey, Nancy, push your foot away. Try not to let the hip lift. Yeah, good. Do you feel how that's more good? Gorgeous. Yep. Yeah. Good question. 2 more. Last one. And bring that foot back. Now, once again, we're just going to shift a little, right? Trying not to move our spine. Use your breath to help stabilize you. I'll flex that foot, let it hinge forward, biasing towards sticking your tailbone back, and then drag the foot back. Think of almost lifting your hip bone towards your face here. Good. Good. And then almost pull your hip bone towards your face as that leg goes behind you. So we're trying to lengthen through the front of our hip, right? So if our spine is moving, our whole hip bone comes down, we go into lumbar extension rather than hip extension, right? Which isn't bad. Lumbar extension is needed, but so is just hip extension. Good. 2 more. Last one. Nice job, everybody. Go ahead, roll onto your stomach. And go ahead and just bring your forehead to your hands for a second. Shift your hips from side to side. And then find where your hip bones and pubic bone are. If your hip bones are heavier than your pubic bone, think about lifting your belly button, lifting your hip bones, lengthening out through your back. Now, think about that breath we did at the beginning, right? Where this is filling rather than sinking. And then exhale, think about your ribs and belly button gently drawing up. Inhale wide. And then exhale from the front. One more. Now extend your hands, suction cup them to the ground. Keep that same breath. Think about that shoulder blade rotating down so that arm can lift, opposite leg can drag up. Press that hand back into the wall or floor, which is kind of like the bottom wall, right? Back and forth. It's like a supported, slow swimming / bird dog from quadruped, right? Now, if this feels good, stick with that. If you would like, you can curl your collarbones forward slightly, hover your hands, and we go a little bit faster, using your breath to keep you stable. 2 more. Last one. Hands to your side. Shoulder blades draw down, and we're just going to try to peel our spine up a little bit. We don't have to peel up a lot. Yeah. And then slowly lower. Couple more. So think about shoulders drawing down, collarbone spiraling open. Yeah, and it's more about a lengthen through the crown of your head rather than a lift towards the sky. 2. Last one, hold. Inhale. Exhale, float your arms up and slowly lower. Let's do one more. Good. Inhale. Exhale, float your arms up. Hands to the side. Now, find your shoulders. Even if they are dumping forward, we're going to posteriorly tilt them. Press yourself back into a rest position. Okay. Slide your elbows towards you. And we're reaching one arm to the side. And then you can rotate. And then back. So now that we've gotten that passive rotation, we're just getting a little bit of active rotation. Hey, Nancy, flip your palm to the sky for me. The one that you're rotating. Yeah, does that, nope, other way. More, yeah, there you go. Uh-huh. Last one. And then other side. So you can, of course, keep your palm facing out, but if you tend to internally rotate through your shoulder, thinking of that palm facing up, so you get that external rotation, will actually help you rotate, right? It's like we are, yeah, opening that pec, getting our like spinalis group active. Last one. And tuck your toes under, press your hips up. Walk your hands toward your feet or your feet towards your hands and relax over your legs. Let your arms dangle. Press your feet into the floor, roll yourselves up, and we're gonna end with just the tiniest bit of balance work. All right, so if heel to toe is too intense, separate your feet. If it's not intense enough, lift foot. Yeah, think about squeezing your inner thighs together. And then we're just gonna look over one shoulder. Didn't see anything. And then look over your other shoulder. Now, if this is too easy, great, close an eye. If this is still too easy, close both eyes. All of a sudden, it's a whole new world, right? Good, because we're challenging our ocular system, our vestibular system. Good. And then we get to do the other side. The other thing is you can use your fingers or your hands or your arms to kind of tell your nervous system that it's okay to move, right? Yeah. When we look, it's okay to be the willow tree and not the oak tree. Good. Using your breath to help your body just naturally stabilize. One more each side. Good. Both feet together, we're gonna flip our palms towards the sky, open our collarbones, little lift, come back, slide your shoulders straight up to your ears, and then just drop them straight down. Nice job, you guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. I can't believe our hour is up already. Nice, nice work. Thank you so much. Yeah, how did everything feel, you guys?